Well, hello, friends, and welcome once again to another edition of the 360 Experience podcast. I am your host, Tim Braheem, and today I'm going to ride solo in this episode, as I've done one prior time. And you're going to hear me doing this a few more times here in the future. I think there are some topics right now that need to be discussed as it relates to the mortgage industry and things that I'm finding through my coaching of loan originators all over the country to be important subject matters to discuss in some depth. So I figured rather than bringing in a guest, I'd do a little bit of just solo teaching. And today's episode is going to be on the subject matter that has always been near and dear to my heart, the perfect loan process. Now, I don't know if you've heard the term the perfect loan process, or PLP for short, before, but it is something that I authored and branded and even trademarked many, many years ago now. And I'm going to get into the backstory behind that. And we're going to talk about how to cultivate new business on every loan that you do and why it is that every loan that you do is a precious commodity, and that you need to have a system of customer service that seizes the opportunities to develop new relationships and repeat customer business. So it's a super important topic that we're going to go through today. So I invite you to sit back, get your notes ready, and be ready to take a lot of notes. I'm going to be providing you with some free downloads in today's episode as well. So you'll want to check the show notes. Before I get going with this episode, I want to first say thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being a subscriber to the 360 Experience. And if you find today's episode to be valuable, and I sure hope that you do, I would encourage you to forward it along to colleagues within your workplace. Make sure that they become educated on the important topic of the PLP. And also give us a like on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. But if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It makes it a lot easier for us to be able to get great guests on the show and to be able to bring value to you. Before I further continue, I want to mention that this episode is sponsored by both the Loan Atlas, which I'll share a little bit of information on the Loan Atlas a little bit later in the context of explaining the perfect loan process, and Performance Experts Coaching, which has been my coaching endeavor for 14 years now, and in particular, the Leadership 360 coaching program, which right now we are accepting applications for the Leadership 360 coaching signature program. It is a program like none other. It's 14 years in the making, and myself and my colleagues that I've been working with for over a decade now as fellow coaches are extremely proud of this program. So if coaching is something that you're interested in exploring and understanding a little bit more about, I really want to encourage you to give consideration to applying and checking out our Leadership 360 signature coaching program. We'd be glad to talk to you about it. So without further ado, my friends, I bring myself in as the guest today in the 360 Experience, talking about the perfect loan process. Okay, so I want to start off by laying a foundation of understanding here for you, a little bit about my history as a mortgage professional and how the perfect loan process came about. I think the first thing that is noteworthy in my explanation is that there's a book called The Five Love Languages. Perhaps you've heard of it before. I've read it a few times, and my wife and I teach on this subject matter on the couples retreats that we do in Italy every couple of years. Now, The Five Love Languages is an interesting book, and it talks about, of course, five different love languages, and there's actually a love languages assessment quiz where you can evaluate, based upon a series of questions, what love language speaks most to you. And it's really an effective tool in using with couples in marital relationships and with your children, etc. The noteworthy part about it and how it applies to this particular subject matter of the perfect loan process is that my number one love language by far is acts of service. Whenever somebody provides me with terrific customer service, frankly, I'm like a puddle at their feet. I mean, they just own me. I don't know what it is. I just get off on somebody taking good care of me. So earlier in my career, I want to take you back and give you a little bit of a history of my career. Started in business in 1992 as a mortgage broker. Was a mortgage broker my entirety of my career. got out of the starting blocks pretty well. First full year in the business, made about $35,000 in income, which was pretty good for a 26-year-old guy at the time, and thought that I was on a good pace. And then 1994 hit. And for those of you that go way back to 1994, you know that interest rates spiked dramatically. They got all the way up to 9.75%. And I had to regroup and try to figure out what the hell I was doing at that time. By 95, I started to hit a little bit more of a stride, get my business back up. 96 was a decent year. 97 was decent. Did about 40 million in 1997, my fifth year in the business. And then 1998 came around. And 1998 was a banner year for me. I did 301 loans for a little over 100 million in production. My first seven-figure income year at the age of 31 years old. First time that I'd made $1 million. And I felt like I was the king of the mountain. I mean, interest rates were at about 6.75% to 7%. I was refining everybody. I was doing some purchase loans, had a lot of bounce in my step. This might sound a little bit familiar as I continue. Perhaps some of you went through this in 2000 and in 2020, 2021, et cetera. Then 1999 hit and interest rates went way back up, all the way back up to about 8.75%. And everything just came to a screeching halt. And back then, I was a student of my trade as a mortgage professional, and I used to attend a lot of mortgage industry events, in particular the Todd Duncan events. And I was in Todd Duncan's advanced program at the time. And I was getting ready in June of 1999 to go to the Big Island of Hawaii for one of those retreats. And as I was reviewing my loan pipeline in the airport, getting ready to fly to Hawaii, I was staring down the barrel of funding only 3 loans in June of 1999. Now, let's do the math here real quick. In 1998, I funded 301 loans, so I averaged 25 loans a month. Here I am in 1999, just 6 months later, and I'm looking at funding 3 loans. Now, I've got a big fat team at the time. I've got a couple of processors, a transaction coordinator, and a personal assistant. Now, I'm sure that some of you understand this story because 2023, 2024 felt a lot like this for most of you. So I start plotting my strategy as to who I'm going to let off on my team. And I was going to let go of my personal assistant, Fern, when I came back from the event. And when I was at the event, I was an attendee, and there was a really terrific teacher in the mortgage space at that time by the name of Jim McMahon. And Jim posed a statement/question. The statement was, a leader is someone who takes personal responsibility for the job security of the people that they are leading. And then he asked the question, have you done that? And it really struck me. And I paused and I thought, I remember I was sitting in the audience and I thought to myself, no, I haven't done that at all. I was lazy. I mean, I didn't keep remaking myself. I didn't keep hustling. I was just kind of lazy and waiting for the phone to ring and making a lot of money in doing so. But I didn't position my team for the pivot to a higher interest rate environment. And my conscience just wouldn't allow me to let Fern go. And I started to really think during those days when I was on the Big Island of Hawaii, what do I need to do to remake myself? What do I need to do to remold my business? And I realized that every loan that we do is a zero-sum game. Every loan. And I want you to think about this for a minute. And what I mean by that is this. On every loan, you have a series of different people involved. You have your borrower, you have the buyer's agent, you have the listing agent. In many cases, you have a CPA involved in the transaction indirectly, and you have a financial advisor, a financial planner involved, or a stockbroker involved in the transaction indirectly. And the question is this: on every loan, are you memorable at the end, or are you forgotten about? And what are you doing on every single loan to ensure that 100% sure they're going to come back and do another loan with you? That's your annuity income that we're talking about. This industry has an annuity income associated with it, and it's based upon whether or not you do a spectacular job of educating and serving your client and all the referral partners involved in the transaction on every single loan. It's precious. Your loans are your ultimate marketing tool if you do them right. You have a captive audience for the entirety of those 45 to 60 days. What are you doing to market to them? What are you doing to brand yourself? What are you doing to impress them on you as a professional? And what is your system? A repetitive system that ensures that at the end of every loan, people say, wow, that was way better than I expected. What is your system for service? Getting back to acts of service, my number one love language. So as I was sitting there pondering all of these questions that I just posed to you, I realized that I needed to remake my business and I needed to create a system on every single loan that generated a predictable result, thrilled parties across the board that took note of how different and special the experience was in working with us. So I came back from that event and I did not fire Fern. In fact, she worked with me for the next 7 years after that. And my team and I got together. I hosted a breakfast at my house, made breakfast in the backyard for everybody. And I sat down with them and I came clean. I told them the truth that I was thinking of letting Fern go, said it right there in front of her, and realized that I haven't done my job as a leader in ensuring the job security of everybody on this team. And I shared with them my vision. My vision was to remake the way we do loans, to create a system of customer service unlike anything else in the marketplace, to ensure that at the end of every loan, people were like, holy shit, like that was really, really good. And if we do that, we could literally turn every loan we do into at least one, two, or three additional loans in the future, whether it be the client coming back, whether it be them talking to their friends and family members and referring people to us, and whether it be us cross-selling the listing agent on the transaction, creating an addiction with the buyer's agent who referred the deal to us, cross-selling the CPA and the financial advisor, and cultivating new referral partner relationships. But this required intentionality. It required a system for serving people. So we as a team co-created the perfect loan process together. Now, I want to read a quote to you, and it is a quote from somebody that you all know. His name is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett said, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. I want you to think about that for just a moment. What are you doing to build a reputation, and what are you doing to ensure that you don't ruin it? And what I'll pose to you is that this requires you having a system for facilitating loans that is highly proactive. Now, as I said before, your loan process is your gold mine. I want to deepen this statement for a minute. Not only is it the annuity income associated with being a mortgage professional, because again, it's a zero-sum game. Either they're thrilled or they're not. There's no in between, okay? Good is not good enough. Satisfied is not good enough. Blown away is what we're shooting for here. And again, on every loan, you have this captive audience to market to. In fact, my dear friend Caleb LeGrand, who has been on this show, who is on the faculty of the Loan Atlas, when he adopted the perfect loan process 11 years ago, he said it perfectly. He said, the perfect loan process is my marketing. And that's what I found to be true as well. Did a lot of marketing early in my career, consumer direct, direct mail, telemarketing, marketing to real estate agents, etc. And I realized that I was making it too hard for myself because on every loan, I have a captive audience for those 45 or 60 days. They have to read my texts. They have to read my emails. They have to take my phone calls because they have a vested interest in the transaction that we are working on. So what am I doing with intentionality to ensure that I impress them on every loan that I do? So you have this captive audience to market to. Now, let's get back to Caleb for a second. So when I met Caleb, it was the calendar year of 2014, and he was doing between 15 and 18 loans a month. So he's already a great loan originator. But Caleb LeGrand adopted the perfect loan process back in 2014, and he has not had a year since, including the tough years of 2022, 2023, 2024. He's not had a year since where he did less than 300 loans. So his volume skyrocketed, and he credits the perfect loan process for the reason for that. The reputation that he has in his market in South Carolina is sterling. People know that they can depend upon him, and he has become the experience from which all others are compared against. So let's talk about the addictive experience. What we're looking to create here is an addiction. An addiction comes from you exceeding expectations. It comes from you setting a standard from which all others are compared to and fall short. Again, an addiction comes from you setting a standard from which all others are compared to and they all fall short. And that's what your goal should be in your loan process. Every time your realtors do a loan or do a transaction with somebody else other than you, it should be an inferior experience that has them constantly reminded of you, reminded of the fact that this just isn't as good as when I work with my lending partner who provides an amazing service experience. So I'm going to tell you another story, one that I've been telling for a very long time now. This goes back over 20 years. My son was 4 years old. My daughter was a year old, maybe 9 months even. And we went to Hawaii for 2 weeks on vacation as a family. And the first week, we stayed on the island of Maui in Kaanapali at the Marriott. Nice hotel. Had a very nice time. They had a great family pool. It was a good experience. And the second week, our plans were to go south about an hour down to Wailea to the Four Seasons Hotel. Now, I had stayed at a couple of Four Seasons prior to that, and I knew that it was going to be a great experience. But I had heard that this particular Four Seasons, the one in Wailea, was a very special hotel. So I was super excited to go down there and experience their service platform and have a wonderful time with my family. And I said to my wife, I said, let's try to get an early check-in. Let's get out of here as quickly as we can and get down there to the next level of experience. So I called the Four Seasons and I asked them if they would receive us early. And they said, sure, Mr. Braheem, come on down. We'll get you an early check-in. So we drove down, and when we arrived at the hotel, we pulled up in the foyer in our rental minivan, and the bell captain came out and he opened the sliding door to our van, and he saw that my daughter was asleep. She was about a year old at the time, and my son was sitting there in his car seat. And he said, welcome to the Four Seasons, Mr. and Mrs. Braheem. I'll take your bags. Please gather your children and go into the front desk and we'll get you checked in. And I remember looking at my wife and saying, how did they know it was us? Like, surely there are other people checking in today. But that's the first clue, was that somebody tipped them off that expect the Braheems sometime in the next hour or so. They have two young kids. So he knew and was waiting for us to arrive and rolled out the red carpet for us. Now it goes further, much further. We walked into the lobby and we went to the front desk, and the lady greeted us and said, Mr. and Mrs. Braheem, I can see that your daughter's asleep. Why don't we go straight to the room and we'll check you in a little bit. So they took us up to the room rather than making us wait in the lobby area and give credit cards and all of that. And when they opened the door to the room, we had two adjoining rooms. And, in Hawaii, they have these balconies. They call them lanais. And I remember as soon as they opened the door, I could see straight out to the lanai. And all around the outside circumference of the balcony was mesh netting tacked to the metal railing to ensure that a young child could not crawl out there and fall through, which created, of course, immediate comfort for my wife and I. All of the coffee tables and end tables in the bedrooms had bumper rails tacked onto the corners so a young child couldn't bump their head. We walked into the adjoining room where the kids' beds were. There were two twin beds, and each one of those beds had a stuffed animal on it, a stuffed parrot, to greet our children. I went into the bathroom, and they had cut out with sponges the letters Trey and Olivia to spell out my kids' names and put them around the circumference of the bathtub. I mean, we were just completely blown away by the level of customized service that they were providing us with. 10 minutes later, there's a knock at the door. I answer the door, and there's a gentleman standing outside. He has two little trays in his hand. On each tray is a fresh baked chocolate chip cookie that smelled wonderful and a glass of milk. And he said, "Are Trey and Olivia here?" I was like, yeah, come on in. Like, what is going on here? I mean, this is unreal. Talk about owning your client. Talk about knowing and predicting the needs based upon the profile of that client as to what would be important to them. Every day when I'd go to the beach with my son, they'd give us buckets, molds for sand castles, shovels, so we could play in the sand. Every afternoon at 3 o'clock, they would bring popsicles out to the family pool for the kids. They knew what we needed and they exceeded our expectations and set a standard of customer service that was unlike anything else that we had ever experienced. And I'm still talking about it more than 20 years later. Every hotel that we stayed at after that just flat out didn't measure up. It wasn't the same experience. And every time I was staying at one of these other hotels, I was always thinking about the Four Seasons in Wailea and what a special experience it was. So when I got together with my team, we talked about this and we talked about how could we create a system that ensures that at the end of the loan process, everybody has taken note of us. And when they work with someone else in the future, again, it's an inferior experience to the one that they had with us. Let me give you an example, just a small example. Now, the perfect loan process, before I give you this example, is a 73-step process that we created. Now, of course, over the years with technology and new ways of doing business within the mortgage space, we've continued to modify it and to update it to today's market. And I've done that with my clients who I coach in my Leadership 360 coaching program. So the rendition of it that exists today is slightly souped up and slightly different than it was back when I was executing it more than 20 years ago. And it works incredibly well. And I have a long list of successful loan originators that are my friends and clients that have implemented the PLP, people like Tyler Osby and Caleb Grand and Craig Strent, just to name a few, who would tell you that that was the single most important thing that they implemented in their business. Now, in the show notes for this episode of the 360 Experience, you have an opportunity to download the perfect loan process in its written form. So I want to encourage you to go to the link in the show notes and to download it and print it and study it and start looking at implementing it within your business. And that's something that is a gift to you from me and from my partners and the faculty of the Loan Atlas. If you haven't checked out the Loan Atlas team, you got to go check it out. I mean, the Loan Atlas is the MBA of the mortgage industry. It is a faculty of 19 teachers, including myself, that have funded a cumulative total of over $29 billion in personal production in their career. There are 7 live coaching calls every single month with the faculty members, including myself. There are over 200 classes and over 50 hours of content, along with support materials, slide decks, checklists, you name it. I mean, there's nothing out there that even comes close to the Loan Atlas as it relates to a coaching resource to loan originators. And it's at a fraction of the cost of coaching. And you can, in the show notes, click on a link to find out a little bit more about the Loan Atlas. And I want to encourage you to schedule a demo with our consultants who can walk you through the platform, show it to you in its full form, and give you a really good idea as to what it has to offer in an effort for you to see if this is something that would work for you in your business. So I'll give you an example of a small thing that I used to do on every single loan. And I'm going to give you more examples later. I'm going to give you some excerpts from the PLP so you can sink your teeth into it and kind of get a feel for some of the stuff that would happen. But on every loan, my objective was, and I really want you to understand this philosophy, is that the objective of the perfect loan process was to be proactive, to eliminate reactivity, and to create an addiction. So one of the things that I did right away was I took out a yellow legal pad and I put it on my desk and I had my team do the same. And I said, every time that you're reacting to something, that you're having to drop everything you're doing and address a need, I want you to write it down because that's a clue as to an area of our system that is deficient where we are not being proactive and then are subsequently having to react. And this is what causes us to slow down. This is what causes us to be inefficient when we facilitate loans. Another component of the PLP is that it creates dramatic efficiency for your team so you can process more loans because you have a conveyor belt system of customer service on each and every loan that ensures that you have dynamic customer service and the result that you're looking for at the end. So one of the areas that I had written down was realtors calling me and saying, hey, can you get me a pre-approval letter on this borrower? And I'm sure that many of you have had that happen before. And it happens in the evenings or on a weekend when you're with your family and you got to drop everything you're doing and rush to your computer and generate a pre-approval letter and update the numbers and those types of things. So I realized this is ridiculous. I mean, I know they're going to need a pre-approval letter. why not get it to them before they ask for it? That's an example of being proactive to eliminate reactivity. So I implemented that component into our system of service, which was that when I got done speaking to a client, evaluating their loan structure, providing them with 3 or 4 different loan scenarios to choose from, and then zeroing in on one particular loan that worked best for their needs, I would then automatically generate a pre-approval letter based upon us getting their loan approved through our system. And I would provide it to the realtor before they could ever ask for it. And I would ask them to just go ahead and keep this in their paper file or an electronic file that they may have on their phone or in their computer. So when they go out to write an offer for a client, they don't need to chase me down. So one day I'm playing golf up in Ojai, California, with one of my realtor partners named Jerry Michaels. We're getting ready to tee off on one of the holes. And he said to me, before he was getting ready to hit his shot, he said, "You know what I love that you do?" And I said, "What's that?" He said, "You always provide me with a pre-approval letter before I could ever think to ask for it." And he said, and I said, "Tell me more." I said, "Well, why do you love that?" And he said, he goes, "First of all, half the time I don't even know that you've talked to the client yet. And the next thing you know, I'm getting an email with a pre-approval letter from you." And it's like, "Oh, okay. I guess he talked to them and they're already approved. That's fantastic." And and then when I go to write an offer, I don't need to hunt you down. And you have no idea how many times, Tim, I'm forced to work with another lender that I don't really want to be working with. And I'm trying to get a hold of them. And it takes them 2 hours to get back to me because they're watching a movie or something like that, or at their kid's ball game. And then I can't move forward and get my job done. That's the addiction part that I'm talking about. That's the standard from which all others are compared to that I'm talking about. When they fall short, they're reminded of me. When I stay at the Marriott and it's not the same experience as that Four Seasons in Wailea, I'm reminded of that hotel experience that I had on the island of Maui that week. So gives you a little bit of a feel for what I'm talking about. Now, the question that I want to pose to you is, how well does your current process ensure a smooth, seamless, efficient experience from start to finish? How well does your process ensure a smooth, seamless, efficient experience from start to finish? And is it a standard that you're setting that others fall short of? And if not, then you're blowing an enormous opportunity. Now, we created the PLP in 2009. My production in 2009 dropped by 50%. I did about 56 million in 2009. Once things started cooking, I never had a year where I did less than 500 loans for the last 4 years of my career. I did 676 loans in my final year in the business in 2004 for a little over 235 million in production. And I will tell you that the perfect loan process was why. Because we created such a reputation in our community of being by far the best lender that we were able to work with some of the best real estate partners, accountants, and financial planners in the area. As a result, people would give us 5-star reviews all the time. Now, this was before 5-star reviews. This was when we would do a customer service survey at the end of the transaction, but we would always get 5s on a scale of 1 to 5 in every category. So I want to give you another example, excuse me, I'm going to give you another example of how to leverage every loan in process. So on every loan, you need to make your service unforgettable. And you need to make it something that captures the attention of both real estate agents, the accountant, and the financial planner. So when I started to evaluate that in a little bit more depth, and I started to look at, I've got this captive audience for 45 to 60 days. What am I going to do with it? Like, how am I going to leverage every loan that I do and create new loans with it? I started to develop a strategy for getting introduced to other realtors, accountants, and financial planners. And I did this based upon asking a very simple question. So the question that I would ask, I'd be done evaluating a loan structure with the client. We're moving forward with getting going. I've established credibility and authority as a teacher and an educator on their financial decisions. I mean, it starts with you, okay? You are the beginning of the process. You've got to bring your A-plus game. You can't expect your team to provide A-plus service if you're not providing A-plus service at the beginning. If you're not evaluating loans properly and you're putting bad loans into your system that never are going to close, You're the one who's wrecking the entire experience. So you have to be an expert. You have to evaluate files. You have to know your loan product. You have to know how to qualify somebody. And you need to make sure that your team isn't touching a loan unless this thing is going to close. We had over a 95% closing ratio on all loans that we opened after we adopted the PLP. So 9.5 plus out of every 10 loans we opened closed. And that's because I wouldn't open a loan if I didn't have full commitment from the client. I wouldn't open a loan if I hadn't fully vetted the file to make sure that there were no time bombs in it that were going to cause it to explode. So on every loan, once I've established this credibility, and I've gotten the client to say yes to me, and we're getting ready to move forward, I would then ask the following questions. Mr. Jones, rate for me on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best, your existing relationship with your real estate partner. Rate for me on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best, your existing relationship with your CPA, your existing relationship with your financial advisor. If they gave me a 6 for their financial advisor, I'd say, wow, a 6, that's kind of a low score. Why not a 10? What would it take for this person to be a 10? I don't know, Tim. I mean, I pay them a certain amount of money every month to invest my money. I always hear my friends are getting a greater rate of return than me. I'm just not so sure if they're doing a great job for me or not. And excuse me while I clear my throat one more time. Apologize for that. Have a little bit of allergies today. Just not so sure if they're doing a great job for me. Mr. Jones, as I'm sure you can imagine, I'm very blessed to work with some of the top financial advisors in the area. I've been doing this for a long time, and I run into them from time to time in various circles and on loans that I do for my clients. And one of the things I think is incredibly important, I mean, I'm going to be the expert on managing the debt side of your balance sheet. Okay. I'm a debt manager by nature. My job really just begins when your first loan closes with me. From there, it's my job to assist you in managing the largest indebtedness that you'll ever take on in your life. Most people that do what I do for a living just provide the debt and walk away. And I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to proactively always be looking for cheaper money for you. And when it becomes available, and when circumstances in your life change, you want to add onto your house, you want to, buy an investment property, et cetera. I want you to come to me so I can help you make wise choices. But the other side of the balance sheet is investing in the generation of income. And it's incredibly important that the person that you have that's representing you is a 10 in that category. And the fact that this person's a 6 is a concern of mine. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce you to Rich Katz. He is my financial advisor. He's wonderful at what he does. I'm super thrilled with the job that he does. He cares about my needs and my family's needs, and he's extremely wise. I'd like to make the introduction. I'd like to have you get to know him a little bit better and have him evaluate whether or not he can help you more than you're being helped right now. Would you be open to that? It's a simple yes or no question. If they say no, they're not saying no to you. Doesn't mean they're not going to do their loan with you. I never had one person say no, and I'm offended that you would ask. Never. Okay. More often than not, because they gave their person a 6 or a 5 or a 7 or whatever it was, they would say, sure, I'd be open to such discussions. Boom, outbound referral to one of my referral partners. Okay. So that's almost a guaranteed outbound referral. And in the worst case scenario, they just simply say to you, no, actually, I think I'm good. Okay, great. Let's move on. Let me tell you about what we need to do to get your loan started. You just pivot back to the loan scenario. Every single loan. Not every once in a while. This is why I'm talking about a system, a repetitive system on every loan that has certain strategic touch points to where you take advantage of opportunities that exist. Now, let's hypothetically say that the person gives their CPA a 10. A 10. Wow. I don't get those very often. That's a terrific score. Tell me a little bit more. Like, what is it that you revere about this person that has you rating them so high? Oh, well, I mean, we went to college together, or they're my brother-in-law, or, I mean, super smart person that is more than just my CPA. I mean, I get more than just tax advice. I get investment advice. I mean, this person really is more of a financial planner for me. I mean, I really trust her. Mr. Jones, I'm sure that you can imagine that I'm always looking to align myself with people that are revered by their clients. And this sure sounds like somebody that I would like to meet. I'm wondering if you think it would be a good idea for me to reach out to Mary Jones, your CPA, introduce myself, share with her that we have a mutual client in you, talk to her about the different loan scenarios that we have reviewed together, and share with her the one that we've zeroed in on just to make sure we get her to rubber stamp it because I know that her opinion means a lot to you. Do you think that would be a good idea? Again, simple yes or no question. Very seldom is the answer a no. More often than not, the answer is a yes. And now I have my in. I pick up the phone, I call Mary Johnson, the CPA. Hey, Mary, my name's Tim Braheem with First Rate Financial. We have a mutual client by the name of Bill Jones. I always ask my clients to rank on a scale of 1 to 10 the services that they receive from other financial advisors in their life. And Bill gave you a 10. So first of all, congratulations. I mean, he told me all about your guys' relationship, how long-standing it is, and what he reveres about you. And he thought it would be a good idea for me to reach out to you, introduce myself, go over a couple of different loan scenarios that we've zeroed in on, make sure that you agree that these are the best ones for him. And then I'd love to get together with you for a cup of coffee and get to know you a little bit better because I'm always looking to align myself with people in your profession that I can refer business to and that I can develop a relationship with. Would you be open to that? Listen, it's going to be real tough for this CPA to say no to me because they're saying no to their client who gave them a 10. There's nothing unethical or untrue about the script that I just gave you. I asked Bill if he thought it would be a good idea for me to contact Mary, and he said yes. So I contacted Mary and shared that with him. And this is your way to get introductions on every single loan to potential new referral partners. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about that you need to be doing on every single loan. Now, the objective here is to forge deep relationships on every loan. Deepen the relationship with the borrower. Become their trusted advisor. Become someone who they revere and look to as their go-to person. That starts with you at the beginning being a wise educator. You need to understand the financial markets. You need to understand the tax benefits of paying points and not paying points. You need to understand why certain loan structures are better than others given certain circumstances that borrowers may have. And you need to display and show off your authority. Hear me clearly on this. If a borrower ever thinks that they know more about your trade than you do, you're not doing your job. If they call you up and they say, I think I want to wait, on moving forward with buying a home or refinancing my home because rates are going to come down, because I saw that on CNN or CNBC or Fox, Fox Business News or whatever. All that says is that you have not established your wisdom. That's your clue that you need to be better at your presentation. That's why it's really important that you educate your clients at the very beginning on the cyclical nature of interest rates. What's driving interest rate movement? What are the key financial reports that come out every month? It's not just about the Fed. In fact, it's very often very little about the Fed, as we all know. Sometimes the Fed raises rates and rates go down. Sometimes the Fed lowers rates and rates go up. It's your job to teach them how rates move. And by the end of that conversation, have them feel wiser and have them lay down and defer to you because they view you as an expert. So if you do this as a part of your loan process, if you have the right presentation in place, then you're going to put yourself into a position where people trust you and they heed to your wisdom and advice. And if you do a great job of facilitating the loan from that point forward, and at the end of the transaction, they're like, wow, that was really smooth. I mean, that was way better than any loan I've ever done before. Guess what? These are the people that become your outside sales force. Your goal should be that on every loan, you pick up 1, 2, or 3 people who become ambassadors, edifiers of you, that go out there and talk about you. Let's use a silly metaphor for a minute. So what happens when you go see a great movie? I'm a big movie buff. I like going to the movies. You see a great movie. What's the first thing you do? Like a movie that blows your mind. Like when you went and saw Gladiator, I think it's a movie that I think most people really loved. What's the first thing you did? You went and texted a bunch of your friends or called a bunch of your friends that you got to go see this movie. Oh my God, have you seen Gladiator yet? It's an unbelievable film. That's the affect of someone having a positive experience on you, just like the affect of me talking about that Four Seasons experience in Wailea. They didn't wait for me in the lobby as I was leaving the Four Seasons and give me their business card and say, would you please refer people to us? They don't have to. They just create an experience. People love amazing experiences. They love to feel touched. They love to feel cared for. They love to feel like that somebody really paid attention to them. And that's your goal. And when you do that on every single loan, your business is going to explode. I remember coming home one day and it was a long day of work, and my wife poured me a cocktail. She said, "You look like you need a drink." I said, "Yeah, I do. I'm wiped out. I need to wind down." And she looked at me. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing." I said, it just is happening. It's just happening." She said, "What's happening?" I said, "The phone's just ringing. Like it's coming from everywhere. Past clients, realtors that I worked with that I didn't even know paid attention to me. They're referring business to me now because on every single loan, we executed with perfection this process called the perfect loan process. So if you treat them right, they are your sales and marketing. And that's why Caleb LeGrand said that. He and I both had the same experience. We didn't need to do any marketing anymore once we started executing the PLP because every loan we did became our marketing. And the key is to, once again, exceed their expectations and predict their needs. I want to talk to you about another component of the perfect loan process that has a really big impact. I don't know about you, but I remember very vividly that there was always one question that a borrower could ask me or a realtor could ask me that I didn't want to be asked. Like it scared me. And that question was, why you? Every once in a while, I'd have a borrower that would say, so let me ask you a question. Why you? Why should I work with you versus somebody else who does loans for a living? Now, to me, that was always a tough question because now it's like my back's against the wall and I'm having to do something that I'm really uncomfortable with. I'm having to talk about myself. I'm having to sell myself. I'm having to talk about my interest rates and my knowledge and this and that, and everything else. And I would never be able to be really confident and clean with it because, by nature, I try to be humble and exhibit humility. And now I'm butt right up against that value that I have of humility and being humble. But when I adopted the PLP, that became my answer. So my response would always be, boy, I'm really glad that you asked that. The reality of it is this. I'm pretty good at understanding the financial markets, educating clients, and advising them on prudent financial decisions as it relates to the debt that they take out. But the special thing that we do has a lot less to do with me and a lot more to do with my system and my team. I happen to have assembled a terrific team of experts in all aspects of the loan process, and we together have created a process called the perfect loan process. 73 steps from start to finish to ensure a seamless transaction, a high level of proactive communication, education, and an experience for our clients that exceeds that of anything that they've ever experienced before. And if it was with a real estate agent, I would say, may I show you my perfect loan process? And they would say yes, because they'd be curious, and I'd walk them through it and they'd be like, wow, Craig Strent did this, Caleb LeGrand did this, Tyler Osby does this. This becomes what you sell. You sell your system instead of selling you. So the next question that I have is what would it be like? I just want you to think about this for a minute. What would it be like if you had a system that you really trusted, that you were really proud of, and you built a team that was executing that system with great efficiency? How would that change the game for you? Would you be able to prospect more and not worry about your loan files? Would you be able to go out and hunt for new relationships and follow up on your pre-approved borrowers and stop worrying about whether or not those 10 loans in your pipeline are going smoothly or 15 loans, or if you're doing a ton of loans, 50 or 60 loans? I mean, I want you to think about it for a minute. When I'm funding over 50 loans a month, 673 loans to be exact in 2004, I'm holding a pipeline of 80, 90 loans at all times. The only way that you get to the point where you can have that many loans in your pipeline is if you're just pounding the phones and selling and you're meeting with referral partners and you're generating business consistently. You don't have time to follow up on that appraisal or on that title cert or the HOA cert or anything like that, because I had a system to ensure that that stuff would get done and get done smoothly. And that's why this is so valuable. That's why it's so important for each and every one of you to adopt this process. And you need to download the PLP from that link. And again, if you want advanced training on the perfect loan process, that's one of many, many, many things that are included in the loan atlas. So again, what would it look like if you could trust your system and you could sell more? So again, on every loan, we need to establish authority. On every loan, we need to intentionally, I want you to hear this clearly, okay? Intentionally under promise and over deliver. That's where the addiction comes in. It's not like the Four Seasons said to me in advance of me arriving, you're going to be able to build sandcastles with your kid, and we're going to put bumper rails around the tables, and we're going to put a stuffed animal on the beds, and we're going to deliver a chocolate chip cookie. No, 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 no. All that's a surprise. It's a wow factor. That's where the addiction comes in. The expectations being exceeded come from under promising and over delivering. A confident loan originator intentionally sets up the under promise and over deliver. Most loan originators, unfortunately, over promise and under deliver. And that comes from insecurity. I'm going to say it again. Most originators over promise and under deliver, create disappointment, create an inferior experience, and that comes from insecurity. So let me give you a couple of examples of that. I'm sure you've been asked the question before, how long is it going to take for me to get loan approval? Or you've been asked the question, how long is it going to take for you to get all of those conditions signed off so I can be clear to close and waive the financing contingency? And out of your own insecurities, many of you will say, I'll have that for you in 24 hours. Now, you might get it in 24 hours, but God forbid that, your underwriter's backed up, or you got an underwriter out sick, or something just comes up and it takes 36 hours. Now you failed. Now you have set up an overpromise and underdeliver out of your own insecurity. Wouldn't it be wise to simply say, I'll have an answer for you within 72 hours. You'll hear back from me by then. Intentionally setting up an underpromise and overdeliver. So when your processor gets those conditions waived 2 days earlier than that realtor expected, they can be properly scripted to call the realtor and say, hey, Terry, it's Mary at First Rate Financial. I've got some great news for you. I know Tim told you that we'd have an answer for you by Friday, and today's Wednesday, but we got all those conditions waived and you're clear to close now. I got the underwriter to put our file to the top of the stack and make it a priority, and we're so glad that we're able to provide you with this kind of service. Every little step matters. The more that you do little things like this, the more that you're going to start to turn heads. So on every loan, my process was to gather information on the first conversation, evaluate what this person's needs are, and then to really kind of put everything into the second conversation. I would say to the client, Mr. Jones, thank you for taking the time to talk with me. What I want to do is I want to do a little bit of homework and research on your behalf. I'm not going to charge you for this service. I'm going to call a few underwriters. I'm going to look at several different loan products. I want to put together a comprehensive analysis of 3 or 4 different loan scenarios, and I'd like to present it to you in writing. The unfortunate fact is that most people that do what I do for a living, they kind of shotgun a bunch of numbers at people over the phone or on a Zoom call, and it can become kind of overwhelming. And this is an important financial decision for you and your family. I don't want to make that mistake. I want to put it in writing, and I want to teach you about these different loan scenarios. And I will have that to you by tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Now, I wouldn't get it to Mr. Jones tomorrow at 5 o'clock. I would get it to Mr. Jones today at 5 o'clock. I would always do my cost analysis using the spreadsheets that I used. Every day at the end of the day, from about 4 to 5 o'clock, I would check my rates, build these spreadsheets, and send them out a day early. Now, why would I tell him tomorrow at 5 o'clock and get it to him today at 5 o'clock? Because again, I'm wanting to set up the intentional under promise and over deliver. Where are the places in your process where you can do this? Where you can constantly exceed expectations. They get the spreadsheet. Oh, wow. I thought he said tomorrow. We got it today. Yeah, I made this a priority for you. You make the person feel good by exceeding their expectations. Okay, so there's a couple more things before we conclude, just a couple of examples that I want to give you of other things that you could be doing as a part of your perfect loan process. And again, there's 73 steps. And just to be clear, not every step is something complex. These steps are the flow, the communication, how we, as I say in my metaphorical example of the 4x100 meter relay in the Olympics, how we pass the baton to the next leg of the relay. When my job is done, how do I pass the baton to my transaction coordinator? When my TC's job is done, how does she or he pass the baton to our processor? When their job is done, how do we pass it to our closing docs person? What's the communication that takes place between us as a team and our borrowers and referral partners on every single loan? So all of that is included in the PLP. But what I want to do is just extract a few examples of things that you should be doing, things that you can swipe and adapt from just listening to this episode of the 360 Experience, and that you could start implementing right away. So connection, you may have heard me talk about this before, is vital to your success as a mortgage professional. This is, always has been, and always will be a business of connection. Said another way, the loan originator with the most friends wins. Your job is to develop deep relationships. The deeper the relationships with your realtors, the deeper the relationships with accountants, financial advisors, and in particular your clients, has everything to do with your success. And when you're competing on the commodity that is the interest rate, you've got a borrower that you're talking to, a prospective client, they're shopping you around, they're looking on the internet, they're talking to your competitors, their local credit union, et cetera. My question is, what are you doing to separate yourself from your competition? How are you connecting with this person early in the relationship in a way to where they think of you differently? Now, a major part of that is the educational piece, as I talked about a moment ago, and providing wisdom, teaching them something they didn't know. So they ask themselves the question, what am I going to miss out on if I don't work with him or her? But then there's the other personal component to it. So I started teaching my clients many years ago now, and a great percentage of them do this, and it's hugely successful. When you're done with that first call with a client, the very next thing you should do, the next habit you should adopt as a part of your perfect loan process, you take your phone out, you turn it around, and you record a quick video. Hey, Bill, it's Tim Braheem, First Rate Financial. It was really a pleasure to get to know you a little bit and understand the needs of you and your family. And as I said, I'm going to get you that spreadsheet by tomorrow at 5 o'clock. But I figured I'd take a moment to associate face with voice, record a quick video, and introduce myself to you. Look forward to getting to know you better, helping you in any way that I can. I'm going to follow you guys on Facebook if you don't mind, and just kind of learn a little bit about your family so I can make sure that I really understand your needs in as full capacity as possible. And if you feel compelled, shoot me a video back. I'd love to see what you look like and understand a little bit more about you and get a feel for your personality. I hope you're doing well, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Now, think about it. These little things. If Bill gets on the phone and is talking to the credit union, and the credit union person doesn't call them back right away, and it's a stale call on the first call, and they haven't done a good job of educating them, and they don't really know what this person looks like, I mean, it's a game changer. And by the way, everybody on your team should be doing this. So when the baton gets passed to your transaction coordinator should put a video out there and introduce themselves. Hear me loud and clear on this. It's hard to be pissed off at somebody who you know. It's much easier to be pissed off at somebody who you've never met before. So this makes your team's job easier when there's a connection between the realtors and the borrowers on every transaction, because at least some videos have been exchanged. So let's continue with the subject matter of video. Many of you have had this experience. I'm sure all of you have over the last several years. We're in your competitive offer situation, right? I mean, you got a borrower who you've got pre-approved for 6 months, and they've been looking for property, and they're finally ready to write an offer because they found something that finally meets their needs. And they write that offer, and there are 5 others, or 10 others, or 15 other offers in that they're competing against. And they lose out because the listing agent is advising the seller. They're looking at 13 different pre-approval letters. They all say essentially the same thing. There's no separation being created in any way, shape, or form. And they pick the highest bidder. And your borrower is not the highest bidder, and your borrower loses out, and you're frustrated. Your borrower's frustrated. The buyer's agent's frustrated because you haven't done what you need to do to create uniqueness, to create separation. So I want you to start accompanying your pre-approval letters with a video from you. I want you to tell your client that one of the things that you're going to be doing is learning a little bit about them personally, following them on Facebook, understanding a little bit about their family, asking them questions about what's important to them, because you're going to not only get them approved, but you're going to accompany their cash offer, their fully approved offer, with a video that shares a little bit of a story for the listing agent and the seller to consider before making a decision, to create separation from any of the competition that might be writing offers. So the video looks something like this. Hello, my name's Tim Braheem with First Rate Financial. I'm the lending professional that's representing Bill and Mary Jones. As you know, we are making an offer on your property, and we hope that the offer is a competitive one and one that you're interested in. This borrower is fully approved. We've taken them through the entire loan process. They're essentially a cash buyer. We can close very quickly. But I want to tell you more importantly a little bit about Bill and Mary and why they want to buy your home. They have two young children at the ages of 6 and 8 years old, Sammy and William. And they really want their kids to be in the school district that your home is in. They are big fans of open space. They love hiking. I know that there's a lot of hiking trails near your home. They're also looking for a big backyard, which your home meets that criteria. If there's any questions that you have about their qualifying ability, please feel free to let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And I hope that we can work together and successfully close the purchase of the sale of your home. Now, who wins in this scenario? How about everyone? How about everyone? Your borrower wins because you've created separation and a uniqueness to their offer. The buyer's agent loves it because you've helped them have something unique in the offer that they're making. The seller likes it because they feel like it's a little bit more than just a sterile transaction. There's a humanness to these buyers that are buying their home. And you win big time because you're branding yourself to every listing agent that sees offers that are written when you're representing the buyer. If that offer doesn't get accepted, you still got branded to that listing agent. Can't tell you how many of my clients have called me and said, I get calls. They send me the texts. They send me the text from the listing agents. This is so cool that you did this. Thank you so much. This really helps. These are the little things that I'm talking about on every single loan that you need to be doing. So one final thing that I want to make sure that we cover, and again, there's so many steps of things that you can implement in this system called the perfect loan process. But a simple one that is very easy is to make it a part of your practice on every single loan to send the final closing statement to the accountant. I mean, you've got the accountant's information. It's right there on the tax returns. Simply put together a letter that is a standardized letter. I used to do this on every loan. Hi, Richard. My name's Tim Braheem with First Rate Financial. We have a mutual client by the name of Bill and Mary Jones. I know that you probably are aware of the fact that they just bought a home, and we were able to provide successful financing for them. I also want to show you a screenshot of the review that they gave us. They gave us 5 stars, and I've included a copy of the final closing statement for you because I know that you'll need it for tax preparation purposes come tax time. And I didn't want you to have to chase it down from them when maybe they don't have it handy. I thought this would be really helpful for you. Proactive to eliminate reactivity, proactive to become memorable and create an addiction. I picked up 2 CPAs over the course of my career from doing just that on every single loan. CPAs that were good for between 10 and 15 loans every single year. So there's so much more to talk about, but I have a time limit here on this podcast, and I hope that you found some of these suggestions to be valuable. I want to implore you to execute on this stuff. Remember, in summary, every loan that you do should be the gateway to at least one new loan and perhaps another new relationship that yields many more loans in the future. But you have to have a system, a standardized system of service that proactively takes advantage of that 45 to 60-day window where you have all the eyeballs on you and you have a chance to shine. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the 360 Experience podcast. I'm your host, Tim Braheem, and we'll be looking forward to teaching you in another episode in the near future. Take care, everyone.